Howdy. My name's James Johnson, and I'm going to be talking about A Song of Ice and Fire. I've read the first 5 books of the Song of Ice and Fire series, and I have seen the first 5 seasons of the television show. I'm going to be talking about theories and spoilers, so be wary. And please comment. Love the comments. Speaking of which, sorry I haven't been posting new videos recently. It's the off season for one, plus it's been busy. And thank you to all the people who are helping to support the purchase of a new car. You guys are fucking awesome. I cannot tell y'all how much I appreciate it. My girlfriend's gonna loan me a little bit of money to make sure I can afford. I'm thinking about 2002 Corolla probably, or a 2006 Camry. Consumer Reports are looking good on those, and they're different price ranges, but they're low enough, I think. So anyway, thank you so much. I'll be thanking y'all in a different way shortly once the car's purchased. So let me get to the point of this particular video. This one is about who is Coldhands. Now, I've spoken on this in almost every one of my videos, but I do not have a video specifically on this topic. I feel that this is central to all the other theories of mine and must be stated clearly. I'd suggest first watching our video Blue Eyes, which is the previous video in the playlist. All right, here we go. Coldhands is a wight, clearly. His hands are coal and black from congealed blood. He does not eat or even breathe. Bran's direwolf Summers thinks to himself that Coldhands smells of dead meat, dry blood, and a faint whiff of rot. And Summer further describes him as cold, cold all over. However, there's a mind in him, unlike the wights with which we are familiar. So some mind, some living consciousness, is actually controlling this wight. The only way for anyone to control any other creature in this book is to be a Skinchanger, and Coldhands is not only controlling a wight, he also has a flock of ravens flying under his command and rides a great elk. This is a Skinchanger. And that also explains, but that also means that Coldhands is not just a Skinchanger, whoever Coldhands is, because he's capable of putting his soul, his mind, into a dead creature. We don't know of anyone else who can do that. Coldhands is a Skinchanger who can control the dead, and that also explains his eyes. If you imagine that the glowing blue eyes of a wight represent a soulless emptiness, an absence of free will, a peace, unlike the other wights, this one, Coldhands, has a soul inside. Thus, his eyes aren't blue. But the only person we know of in all these books that can manipulate the dead is Coldhands. I mean, based on the show, we can now presume there's a creature called the Night's King that exists that can control wights, but without the show at this point, we don't have a clue that the Night's King is real. Of all the characters we've met in the book's universe at this point, we know of only 2 who can manipulate wights. Whoever is raising the army of the dead, and Coldhands. And if it weren't for the show, we wouldn't have a clue who is controlling the army of the dead. But that's just it. We've already met someone who can warg the dead, skin change the dead. Coldhands. As we know from the show, the Night's King is raising the army of the dead. David Benioff and D.B. Weiss both refer to the Ice Cold King in their after the show interview for the episode Hard Home. They refer to him as the Night's King. So the Night's King is the ultimate villain. Well, what do we know about the Night's King? Well, for one, there's a mysterious story about what happened to him. He was a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. He gave his soul away for love, declared himself King of the Wall, and was killed. Well, if the Night's King was killed and brought back, he could be like Beric Dondarrion or Lady Stoneheart. If that's true, then he wouldn't have blue eyes, and Coldhands doesn't have blue eyes. But he is also wight-like. He's rotting, with black hands and no breath. In A Song of Ice and Fire, page 1556, Bran remembers Old Nan telling him about the Night's King. Some say he was a Bolton, Old Nan would always end. Some say a Magnar out of Skago. Some say Umber, Flint, or Nori. Some would have you think he was a Woodfoot, from them who ruled Bear Island before the Iron Men came. He never was. He was a Stark, the brother of the man who brought him down. She always pinched Bran on the nose then. He would never forget it. He was a Stark of Winterfell. And who can say? Mayhaps his name was Brandon. Mayhaps he slept in this very bed, in this very room. Your monster, Brandon Stark, Coldhands says. Your monster, Brandon Stark. I'm your monster, he says to Brandon Stark. Or your monster, Brandon Stark. And just like Coldhands had ravens, ravens save Sam in the books and find Sam and Gailey in the television show. And just like a Lord Commander, Coldhands is dressed in the mottled blacks and grays of the Night's Watch, with a scarf concealing his face. Now, there is the theory that he's binging. In the notes on the side of the one of the drafts of the book, wherein he says, wherein Coldhands is introduced, in the sides, the margins, the editor wrote, "Is this binging?" And Martin wrote, "No," and circled it. Now, we might not be able to believe him, but she could know absolutely everything about these novels, and it wouldn't really affect the world. Plus, she's already read the synopsis wherein it lays out what's ultimately going to happen, but it's apparently wrong. He's changed his storyline so many times that it's altered, it appears. But Coldhands is the Night's King. And what Martin's done by doing this, by introducing this ultimate villain as a stranger, truly a stranger, and made him seemingly helpful, is exactly, and innocuous. He seems innocuous. I mean, he is a wight, but he's innocuous. He's just helping. Why would he help a little kid? There's a lot of motivations there that go deep, but in the same situation occurs in the first chapter of Bram Stoker's Dracula. The main character is headed to a location to deal with some real estate matters, and ultimately is trying to find property in England for this fella. And on the way, he keeps getting told that he's going into a place he shouldn't go to by the villagers around. And he gets a villager to ride him to the castle, but the villager refuses to go all the way and meets halfway where Dracula has supposedly said he'd meet them. So the main character shows up in the carriage, and they say that they'll go no further, and there are wolves that surround them and in the woods that are about to attack them. And then a rider shows up driving a carriage, and it shows up out of nowhere, and it halts really quickly as the wolves run away, as if something about this presence is greater than it appears. And there's only one person there riding the carriage, and they're driving it. And the guy gets in the carriage, and he drives to the house. He's let out at the front door, and the carriage bolts around the side. And the carriage rider has his face covered up with a scarf. Everything's covered up, and he's got stronger than you would think hands, and they're thin and long fingers and white-colored. And the carriage rider drops him off and runs around the side, and he doesn't see the carriage rider anymore. And when he knocks on the door opens, and there's Dracula. And he questions, without reaching a conclusion, whether the carriage rider was the same person. And that's what Martin's done. Martin's introduced this ultimate villain as innocuous, which is important because ultimately he's going to paint him as evil in one context and moral in the other, just in the other. I'm trying to save the world from itself. I can offer you peace. But it's also a dictatorship because these people want free will. So, I mean, and that's the story of Paradise Lost. Y'all have seen that video. And again, I know none of this proves me right. It's all circumstantial. I'm not trying to prove that my evidence is perfect. It's certainly nowhere near perfect. It wouldn't win in a court of law. But that's the whole point. Martin needs to give just enough so that you could theoretically have reached the right conclusions, but not enough for you to know you're correct if you did. And to make it difficult to reach the conclusion in the first place. So that in hindsight, when we read these novels, we go, of course that was going to happen. It's on the first page. Alright, so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you all for watching, and again, I can't wait to see the comments.